Okay, our final speaker is Amita Kuttner, the interim Green Party leader, who will have a Q&A session, I believe, after. So I'd like to turn this over again to Jessica Wegg as the moderator for this session. Jessica.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for getting us through the meeting exactly on time, on schedule. Thanks everyone for sticking around. I'm just gonna chat for a few minutes about my election experience and myself, because I know that third time's a charm. And then I'm very excited to moderate the discussion with Amita. So we've been planning this AGM for a while now, and I've had weeks to think about what I was going to say for this little part. I wanted to be uplifting and energizing and hopeful, and I hope I still am all of those things. I'm excited about the chance to stand as the NIPR candidate again. I had a great time during my campaign, and as skeletal and as brief as it was, and despite the crisis in the party, we raised a lot of money, almost $30,000. And although we did not hit that 10% mark that Susan mentioned earlier, our biggest expense by far was signs, which cost around $14,000. So the great news there is that if I'm the candidate again next time, we can just use those same signs again, and we will have that much more room in our budget. Megan asked a great question earlier about the voter mapping analysis that we commissioned, and we don't have too much time to go over it right now, but it matched with a couple of the other questions about Campbell River. So just really quick, one of the things that we learned from that analysis, which looked at all the 2019 data and broke it down by polling stations and by demographics. So it was this really fine examination of the voters in our area, is that there is a way to break into Campbell River. There's an entire section of Campbell River that is green leaning because it's not so much resource-based jobs there. It's the lower income single mom kind of area that they are worried about green ideas. So one of the ways that analysis helped was that it showed us some of the places where we could focus energies. So the best part of that report was right at the end. It said, here are the polling stations. And again, you can look up each one, which streets they are. Here are the polling stations that are strong greens. Here's green leaning. Here's these people are never going to vote for you. Don't waste your time going there. So that information is still going to translate into usable information for the future elections. And it's a great way to look at Campbell River. So we're definitely going to keep using that report. It was, I think it was a really good investment from the EDA. Also, we're getting together an election readiness committee, and we're talking to people, and we're finding ways to find champions for the different towns, different geographical regions that we have in our huge riding. So we're looking for a Campbell River champion. We're looking for people who will just handle things and get us volunteers in all of those places. So be on the lookout for those in your Green GVote emails. Personally, I'm trying to stay active and involved in our community to gain more recognition and trust for the next time. So I've taken on the role of secretary in the district parent advisory committee for school district 71, which is Courtney Comox. And I'm on the executive of the Brooklyn PAC, as well as the volunteer coordinator for the salad bar program. I'm the secretary for the BC Greens for Courtney Comox, and I'm also a member of the Comox Greens. We heard or saw that Jonathan Kerr won under the Comox Green banner. I've marched with Extinction Rebellion, and I've started to get involved in community theater, and all of these things take a lot of time, but I think they're worthy causes. And I am excited to also be walking with Jay for Coldest Night of the Year. Enough about me. I would just like to take this opportunity, and it's not nearly long enough, to thank each and every one of you. I'm so impressed by all the work that so many here are doing for the causes that you believe in strongly, like saving Fairy Creek. You're sacrificing your time, your health, and many of you, your actual liberty for this, and it's not going unnoticed, and it is so deeply appreciated. We do have to take a second to appreciate what's happening in Canada right now and just sort of acknowledge it. It's ugly. People are tired of the pandemic. They are tired of all of the rules and restrictions, and it's showing. And what's happening in Ottawa, what's happening, again, there were more Freedom Convoy demonstrations in Comox today even, it's really important to remember that green core values include nonviolence, social justice, participatory democracy, and respect for diversity. And even when respect for diversity, you don't want to, when you don't feel like you want to respect diverse opinions, when you just want everybody to just do what you do, it means respecting diverse opinions. And obviously there are some we don't have to respect. We don't need to respect racism. We don't need to respect hate, but we do have to acknowledge that people have different ideas and different opinions, and just be mindful of that. And as my favorite poem says, being hated, don't give way to hating. Don't give way to hating. Remember to love each other, to love the people who you want to hate even harder, because they can't beat that. So just keep smiling, keep working hard for the things you believe in, and we will get through this. So there, I said it as fast as I could. I am so excited to get to this next part, which is the discussion with our interim leader, Amita Kuttner. Amita Kuttner, who uses they and he pronouns, holds a PhD in astronomy and astrophysics from UC Santa Cruz, and their research focused on black holes, wormholes, quantum effects, and the early universe. So NIPR has gone out and gotten a rocket scientist, an astrophysicist to come in and speak, and we are so lucky that this person is also the interim leader of our party. They were the Green Party candidate in Burnaby North Seymour in 2019, and also ran for leadership in 2020, volunteered locally during the 2021 election. Amita was appointed interim leader of the Green Party on November 24th of last year, at which point they became the youngest and first trans person and first person of East Asian descent to lead a major Canadian political party. And I am so lucky to be the one to get to introduce and moderate our discussion with Amita Kuttner.
Thank you so much. You were all too kind. Like grinning. It's lovely to see you all. It's lovely to be here. It's lovely seeing those of you who I know and recognize, and it's nice to meet those of you who I haven't met before. Thank you so much for that introduction and for touching on the importance of loving one another right now. I think it's been a theme inside and out, and I don't want to take too long today to talk. I'd rather get into an actual conversation with all of you, but I will say a couple things to give you a little bit of an update of how things are going, how I feel about everything right now, and the hope I have actually for the party and the world in such a time. I will start though by acknowledging that I am on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and that this moment, and perhaps also with the other issues that are showing up around the convoy and everything, and the news that came to light about residential schools over the last year, news to some at any rate, that this is a very important moment for those of us that are settlers to step up to do the work and to seek justice. And also I will add to that my personal commitment in that I would like to see these lands returned and understood to be not belonging to us as settlers. So on that, I will say what an interesting job it is that I have right now. And to be doing this quite suddenly, I might add, and it's been a couple months now, but it's certainly an interesting journey. But I think if I were to share a reflection beyond the fact that I actually have found a lot of joy in doing it, which really speaks to the members of this party, because it is really work that I feel builds something and gives something back to us. And that's what keeps us here through all the turmoil as it has been. And it's given me a lot of hope. And I think that what we're seeing right now in the world, whether it's frustration over the pandemic, whether it's difficulties with rising inequality, seeing the news stories that 60% of people in this country have difficulty getting food onto the table. hits home. And it's very, very, very real for pretty much everyone now. And I think that what that shows us really more than anything is that what we've been saying all along, which is that we need not changes here and there. We need true systemic transformation for long-term survival, for sustainability, for the chance of every one of us and every human being and animal and plant to be able to live lives that are well and that are fulfilling and that are beautiful, that are really full of the things that we would want them to be, and not work for survival, but livelihood and meaning. And so it's given me this, in this moment, that keeping that perspective of everything, I see the ties and really the reflection of the outside onto the inside of our party, as we need to find a way for ourselves to be working sustainably, whether that's organizationally having a long-term plan and supporting EDAs, to making sure that the way we exist with each other in our spaces is one of kindness and compassion, and that supports kind of a working environment that is sustainable. Not overworking, perhaps, although it certainly is tempting when there seems to be such urgency, or really is such urgency. And the other thing I think I am always aware of is the astrophysics side. I can't leave it behind, as much as I might try, and I'm still, everything is physics analogies and math, no matter what I seem to do. But beyond that, I think the perspective that has always had the power to unite us as humans is the one that exists beyond our atmosphere. It is understanding our little blue marble floating through the vastness of space, and really what I find to be a miraculous existence that I have such overwhelming gratitude to be a part of. And when I've spent so many years just thinking about the universe and how incredible it is to be a human being, a alive, sentient creature that can stare back at the universe of which I am a part of, and everything that means. And then seeing the way that we have chosen to live on this planet with that amazing gift that it is. Everything that we have in terms of culture, community, art, sciences. My favorite probably is food. Growing food, gardening, all the things that to us like are so amazing. The beauty of the biodiversity of this place. And that from that, the society that we live in now focuses on something that is such a departure from this possibility of everything that we could have. It leaves behind the attempt to build community, have sustainable life for generations, to be something much more frustrating and mundane. And at the same time, through the very deliberate and yet seemingly impersonal systemic greed, that we could throw that all away. So that's what drew me to politics in the first place. It was like, hey, hold on. I'm not okay with this, actually, for the way that we're living our lives here. But this moment that we're in right now, both as a party and also more broadly in society, I think is the moment to finally dig into that change together and talk about what it is that we would like to see from the world. How would we like to live with each other? How do we want to work with each other? And we see it, the frustrations over the pandemic, the frustrations with everything else. The whole system seems immovable. And yet I don't think it is. I think it's all actually pretty easily changeable. And that change happens here. It happens in community. It happens in building with one another, to be there for each other. Because what I see in the response that people have is a deep-seated fear that no one is there for them. That what is threatened is their ability to survive, something I think, have only recently been willing to accept for one another. Many, many, many eras into our past, we did guarantee well-being for each other and care for one another in community. And that is what gives us the capacity and the hope to be able to create something. And so that's that's what I think actually we're here to do as Greens, is to start at the community level and to build things. We learn to work well with each other, and then we share that with our communities, and we show up. And what this is, it's our core values, it's enacting them and it's spreading them. And it's doing the things that, are, I think, the solutions to finding a way that we transform and create, equitable systems and just systems. It's community. It's digging into and re-experiencing that shared humanity and being willing to show up with others. And it's to the other simple part, the very literal preparedness, whether it's for disasters or whether it's for, breakdown of supply chains and the need for food and water and shelter and health, the willingness to care for someone else's well-being, to know that ours is also a priority. So my goal, very simply, in this time that I get to be interim leader, which is just a fascinating experience. I could also tell you all about how wonderful it is to work with our caucus and how much great work is getting done and how soon we'll be sharing that with everybody. Because getting into the party, it did seem like we were broken down on the side of the road, and it's just like starting up, and it's kind of slow going, but we're getting there, and it's feeling good. We're working out the kinks in the process and the system. But my goal is really to support you, membership, EDAs, to be able to get to this organizing, because that's where our strength is, and that's also how we elect people, is building over time. And it's so wonderful, really, actually, Jessica, that you introduced me by talking about what you're doing in community right now. I'm just cheering for you, because that's it, right? When we show up, we prove to people the difference that we bring, and that convinces everybody more than anything else possibly can. And of course, beyond the support for that is working on getting us a fantastic new leader, and making sure that the leadership contest is very carefully done as much as possible, and in line with our values, transparent, equitable, allowing us to find somebody who can really shine and lead with grace, and that the party is actually ready to support that person to do an amazing job, because it hopefully has an understanding of itself. So that's kind of what I feel like I'm working on. So my offer is really, I'm here to support, to make this party, into this movement, into everything that it can be. And that's not on me, that's on us working together. And me, I hope to just facilitate and guide as much as I can at the party governance and office level. And it's been pretty good. So please, reach out anytime. It takes me a while to reply. Sometimes I'm still like hundreds of emails behind. Sorry to anyone who emailed me in November to say hi. I haven't gotten back to everybody who got to me on the first day yet. But if there's anything I want to leave you with, really is that sense of hope that is pervaded everything, and joy. And that if we really continue building together in a way that we get something, we build more by coming together, and we share joy, and we share, that sense of possible ability to flourish, then we will absolutely succeed. So thank you. And happy to
Thank you,
chat
Amita.
now.
Yeah, those were amazing and inspirational words, and nice to hear a hopeful message again when we don't get enough of that right now. So really great. We've got several questions in the chat. Some are sort of nuts and bolts kind of questions about the interim leadership and the coming leadership race. So some might be like just quick yeses or nos or one sentences. So we'll just go through a couple of them. Are you able to have input into the requirements and processes for the leadership race?
Yes, I am co-chairing the committee. So I'm trying to bring all the things that I personally learned and had issues with in the last leadership race, and try to avoid those issues again going forward. Some of them are very mundane, like data problems. That might be my biggest one. I'm like, you just solve the membership data. But yeah, absolutely.
So do you find that you're receiving the support that you need to do your job?
No, quite honestly, I'm not. But that is, I don't think, something that is like directly anybody's fault. The party is just really thin right now, and everyone's trying really hard. So I'm not feeling that I'm unsupported, if that makes sense, but I literally have a job description that is too much for me to currently accomplish with the resources available. So we're working on getting there.
Okay,
So,
that was one of the questions.
yeah.
Is there an interim leader job description? So it sounds like there is.
Yes, there is an interim leader job description. It's quite big.
It's longer than it could. Okay. Do you know when the next leadership contest will start, and whether the process will be similar to the last one?
I am hoping the process won't be similar to the last one, but the leadership race is likely to, the pre-campaign period is going to start around May 24th, because that's our very latest deadline, and we need all the time we can get right now to get everything else in order. And that will be the pre-campaign period, which should be my guess. These are guesses, so do not take this for a fact, because it's not decided yet, but
This
a couple
is
of
being
months
recorded
long.
in the Zoom world, so
It's probably a couple months long, and then the actual campaigning will only be a couple months as well, because we don't want it to be really long.
okay.
For a number of reasons, but I hope to structure it. I hope we structure it differently, very fundamentally differently.
What was the biggest challenge that you had in the previous leadership contest?
I really don't know if I can pick one. There's a lot. The fundraising structure was a mess. Which most of the campaigns from last time are still actually dealing with Elections Canada over mismatches of elections data and fundraising problems. So that's a huge issue to me that just requires an overhaul. So that was huge. Equity issues were also huge. Like, it was, by absolutely no doubt of that. The burnout was also real, having, like 5 events a week for 4 or 5 months after like a 3-month campaign period was also a lot. Fundraising was a challenge as well, partially because of the pandemic and the ability to reach people. We didn't have access to the membership as well very easily. So all of that and more were the biggest challenges, I think.
So
but
all of it.
All of it. I would say though that I don't think it was so much a challenge, but what I wanted to see was an actual idea from the membership. And what I hope to do is actually engage the membership in this, to have the conversation before we start the contest about what you're actually looking for from a leader, so that we go into this with people having an understanding of what they're looking for as a leader. And that the leadership contest is, last time I think was very much about typical measures of what you expect from a leader based on what other political parties do, but we are not other political parties. Mm-hmm. So the concept that, it's basically fundraising and then reaching the membership, does that tell us as Greens what we're looking for from a leader? No, it doesn't. So that sort of angle of having a leadership contest that helps us get the leader that we actually want, and that definition comes from the membership, not from me or anybody else.
So that's great that you're going in as co-chair of this committee with all of this knowledge, and what you would have done differently and changed is amazing. Have they, one of the questions is the vetting process in place for prospective candidates yet?
No, nothing's in place yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
I'm hoping that we don't have very high barriers to entry for the contest at all, and that vetting will be very much about, will be a much more transparent process, and will also be about very basic things.
How are you going to go about finding out that information that you want, that we need? What are people expecting, needing in a leader?
I was just going to ask the members. It's going to send out a survey.
Okay.
Not tell you what qualities you're looking for. Yeah. And I think so. This gets into stuff that is not decided yet. But I think that there's a bunch of ideas floating around, and one of them is actually to basically do multiple rounds. And the first one is kind of interviews. What would you ask the new leader? What questions would you like to hear? What knowledge would you like them to have? And what? Yeah. So.
I think we had, sorry, I'm just trying to scroll through the questions here. Michael, did you have a question for Amita? My mouse is like on fire.
I see one in here about,
Oh, from John Partyka, sorry. Who had a comment on the way the Greens handled the last election. John, is that for Amita? Well, while John's thinking about that, Mark has a question about the possibility of co-leaders, as in Germany and New Zealand.
the co-leader question is up for debate at the VGM round 2 that's coming up at the end of next month. But if it's approved, I think it has to go through a second stage process because it's a constitutional amendment. So I don't know that we're going to get it in place for this leadership contest, which I'm a bit disappointed by. I think co-leaders would help us for a number of reasons, including bilingualism and the inclusion of people who really should not be told they need to learn another colonizer language in order to participate. So yeah, I think I think it would be great. And I don't know that we're going to be getting it in time for this leadership contest, which, yeah.
That's a fascinating take on the language issue. Can we get one of our admins to unmute John for his question? The reason you can't unmute is just because they were just to make the meeting run efficiently. And I want to point out to everyone, Amita came on their only day off to chat with us. So.
That's, I have to say that me having a day off is kind of like a falsehood. I try, it doesn't work.
on your day less, then you're
my day less.
Okay.
I saw a question in here about
John is unmuted. Sorry, John is unmuted.
Okay.
Yeah, I can speak now. Hi, Jessica. Hi, everyone. And Amita, hi. I love you. You know, that was a great inspiration to me with the words you chose, and I'm so pleased that you chose to serve us as interim leader. It's wonderful that you're doing that. Anyways, it's more a comment and an invitation for anyone to comment, especially Amita, about something that disturbed me personally in this last election. I've got full disclosure. I voted NDP this last election. Okay, and I felt disloyal. It was difficult for me to make that decision. And I understand. Okay, just to try to be quick about this. Jessica called me and spoke with me personally, and I really appreciate that. And I think you're a wonderful person. And I, like most Greens, totally support your initiatives. However, I tried to get you to talk about the disruption that was happening federally. I felt that I wanted to hear Greens speak out against some injustices happening within our party. At least to me personally, to say, yeah, I know this and I don't support this. You see, our leader, who in my opinion was dysfunctional at the time, had not resigned, and we were facing an election. So I totally understand why any candidate that runs would not want to entertain discussions about rightness or wrongness of what was going on. However, I am not like your totally loyal party person. I've been in other parties. I've been in many. Anyways, it disturbed me that when those disruptions were happening, and probably because an election was happening, they didn't speak out and say, hey, that's wrong. That's wrong that she or whomever said this, or I take a stand here. Because you see, our leader, in my opinion, was dysfunctional. And
Hey, John,
I did not want, okay, she had not resigned yet
John,
at that time.
John,
And
can I
I
have
was afraid of voting for somebody that would cooperate with something that I thought was dysfunctional. And I
John,
just needed,
sorry, John, I had to mute him. This is
John,
just
no,
for
I
a
hear what
question.
you're, yeah, sorry, thanks, Larry. John, I hear what you're saying, and that was frustrating. It was hard for all of us to do that, and I understand. You know, thanks for saying you voted NDP. I know a lot of people did because they were just feeling disenchanted. But you know, I think what we can see now is that we have a really superb interim leader in Amita Kuttner, and we've got a new way forward, and we definitely learned some lessons from what happened before, and we've got Amita who was part of the previous leadership slate of people who were put their name forward to be leaders. So we don't want to dwell, you know, a lot on, we can learn our lessons from what happened. But I'm excited that the Green Party is moving forward, and we're in a place now where we can move forward and we can learn from what happened, and see how what we can look for in new leaders, what went wrong there, and how we can be stronger in the next election, and hopefully get some of our Greens who went orange back to green. I have a friend who calls like the similarities like the pumpkin party, the orange and the green. So anyway, another quick question for Amita. I think we only had you for half an hour. From Megan, how do we talk with the Greens who voted for the People's Party?
I had a very interesting conversation with a People's Party supporter during the 2021 election, which I thought was very interesting because, of course, the People's Party was organizing pretty directly against trans rights. So I just went straight for it. I was like, hi, let's have this conversation. I'm really curious, right, about digging into it. And I think that's the answer, is for any of us, I don't mean starting the conversation about trans rights with random People's Party supporters. I mean meeting people where they are and just trying to connect. And so what I think, you know, people will vilify people very easily, and I don't appreciate it, because I think it's important to find out why people feel the way they do. And people will align themselves with movements that are terrifying when you see what's behind them, whether it's the white supremacy or fascism or other very problematic ideals. You know, it's scary to see the stuff show up like that. But I think that I've been writing a statement about this that I haven't managed to put out yet for a while, but that is about finding what it is that's underlying, that people actually are finding and connecting. And what, you know, the People's Party offered a space of non-judgment to people to build community. And often when we're organizing for social justice, you get this judgment and this request for perfectionism and the possibility of being shamed. And nobody wants that. So that's something that draws people over there. The other is people are frustrated for very, very good reasons about the fact that they don't feel like they can live their lives. I will disagree that it's a freedom of movement issue to be able to go to a restaurant, but I will agree that we have not set up our society in a way that lets people say stop working and still survive. And that is a super big problem. So I think that that's where we have to meet people, is we have to give them a space. We can't judge them on their voting record unless they actually voted for it because of fascism, which I don't think the majority of people who are tempted over to the rhetoric are actually, you know, supporting that. And instead of blaming people for it, you say, okay, what do we actually have common ground on? Let's instead find you a comfortable place within our community that we can solve the fundamental issues together and not go down the road of nationalism. and especially white nationalism, because that's what's going on. But from the People's Party supporters that I've met, that's not what they're there for. And and it scares me, right? I get on edge because people are carrying around signs that basically, would result in my death pretty quickly if they got what they wanted. And I don't think it's actually what those people want, but so separating that out, but it's a challenge. I want to address one thing about how the party's doing, though. I want to talk about the health of the party.
Please.
And fundraising and stuff like that. And also in terms of like learning the lessons of the past year and moving forward. And what I will say about what I think happened last year is something very, very natural. Because I think we hear this, like, if there's an outside threat, then everybody's going to work together. No, that's not how humans work. Sorry. If there's an outside threat, people devolve into conflict, because the pressure is too high. And my feeling is that most of the party had nothing to do with it at all. And there was this, ease into dealing with the existential threats that we are so used to feeling as Greens. And that it's easy to take out those emotions on the people next to us. It's easy to, especially when I think that there's a particular interest in not, like, some people wanted to tell the whole story, some people didn't. And so we heard all sorts of different conflicting things coming out, and it made it far worse. And for us, with such an important mandate, to be distracted by that was heartbreaking. Like, of everything that we need to accomplish together. And I think that is the feeling that I felt like everybody actually shared. Because we were all just frustrated with the fact that it was happening in the first place, and that we just didn't want to have to see this happen to people we care about. But the number of people that actually got into it was really small, as far as I can tell. And everyone else just wanted to get back to working together. And so I think that to protect ourselves from that in the future, we need to take this moment to renew our agreements, our community agreements with how we work with each other. To say, I trust that the people around me want the best for us. I trust that they don't intend to harm me. I trust that we can work through it. And it's also about creating the space to work through this, because I think one of the systemic issues that we've had as a party is there's a lot of people that have been hurt and have no way to deal with it. So it gets taken out across the front page of the Toronto Star, or it gets taken out in the courts, or it gets taken out by people, trying to get into leadership positions in the party to try to seek, vendetta, basically. None of that is appropriate. But the solution to it is not trying to shut people out. It's not trying to kick people out of the party. It's not trying to punish people for their behavior. It's to create the space where people can have the discussions about what it is that people were hurt by. It's to actually live out our values in terms of restorative justice. And so that's what I think we need to bring and get out of the last year. And if we have an internally restorative process, I don't think we're going to end up in this problem again. And if we also, at the governance level, figure out how to work with each other in a way where we all feel appreciated, then we'll also, I think, not end up in this. But I will also add that that isn't a problem of last year. That is what I believe showed up last year was something that was simmering and growing culturally for a decade or more. And that this was just the end of it. And I can say that also because by the time we got to the end of the leadership race, I was very glad I didn't win. And I was not the only one that was glad to not win, because we knew what was there. And we're just like, okay, too tired. That was 9 months of campaigning. None of us had the energy to deal with this. And so I think that there's, I don't think that there is any use in laying blame over it, because it was the last chapter of a systemic problem. And that's my hope, is that it's the last chapter of a systemic problem. And that this is, we decide collectively, we don't want that for each other. We don't want that for ourselves. And that's actually not in line with who we are. And so we're not going to do it. Sounds simple, maybe. But in terms of the health of the party, I think we're actually in a good place. If we look at the fundraising over the last year, we did have like higher expenses and it was going down, but also during the election, the funds and supporters are still there, just all went to the EDAs. which means that the Greens have this, we have this core that is not actually at risk at all. And all the stories about, us losing membership or losing funding, like we had a membership drop that is expected a year after a leadership election because a bunch of people join the party to vote for somebody, and people generally don't stay members of parties. So all these things that turned into media stories about us slipping were assumptions that had other reasons behind them. So we do, we absolutely have to get back to stronger fundraising numbers now to get somewhere, but we also, this is just the perfect moment to embrace ourselves. And I think that in terms of overall health, I think it's a positive picture because caucus is working well. The membership is here, strong, ready. And in my mandate, and what I'm doing is two things. One is trying to get actual perennial membership engagement and membership spaces and volunteer engagement set up so that we have that, and that EDAs also have the tools they need to grow between elections and they get the support from the party they need. And visioning, that we come together and talk about the future that we all want, so that we can share that with the rest of the country. So those are within my purview for the next little while. So I'm feeling good about it. And certainly there are a couple of hiccups in terms of just whenever you are trying to break out of cycles, especially difficult cycles that have been going on for a long time. It doesn't happen overnight, but I get the distinct feeling that it is happening, and we're making progress on that. And it's slow going, I think, in terms of getting the party capacity back up and running, given how thin we got after the last year. But it is happening. And the one thing that I'm trying to get people to do is to put their fear to the side and hope instead, because we have the moment. We should embrace it. And it is so easy to be drawn into the fear because it's everywhere. And so in terms of, I don't think there's anything wrong with us as Greens. We are just dealing with the reflection of the external world. We are a microcosm, and given our focus on the big things going on, of course, we have this. And so we're not the only organization dealing with it. And so if we figure out how to deal with it right, we get to share it with everybody else, and we are the solution. So.
Well, I don't know if it was Jim or Heather who said it in the chat, but this has been a breath of fresh air. And I think it's a great note to go out on our AGM, one of hope, one reminding us of why we're here and what we as Greens need to do and can do. And thank you so much, Amita, for taking time today to join us and chat with us. Thank you everyone for coming to our AGM. Participation has been great. I hope we got to most of the questions. Everything has been recorded. And remember, you're always welcome to join in during the executive meetings too. And send us emails to ask us questions or ask for anything that's going on. And I hope to be in touch with you going forward as we're looking for people for our election readiness campaign for next time. And yeah, thank you so much. I think I'll just send it back to Jay to close really fast. Thanks everyone for all your participation. And again, thank you so much, Amita. It's been lovely.